Dear students, today we are discussing about the physiologic anatomy of cerebral cortex. In the last class, we have seen an introduction about the structure of human brain. The human brain is made up of mainly three parts: cerebrum, cerebellum, and brain stem. Cerebrum is the most conspicuous part of the human brain, and it is comprised of two hemispheres, the right cerebral hemisphere and left cerebral hemisphere, which are separated by a longitudinal fissure. The surface layer of the cerebral hemispheres is called cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex is a layer of grey matter. Here you can see the structure of a neuron. The neuron is the basic structural and functional unit of the nervous system. The nervous system, which includes the brain and the spinal cord, is made up of millions of cells which are called neurons. Here you can see the structure of neuron. The neuron is having a spherical part which is called the cell body or the soma, and it is followed by an elongated part which is called the axon. The axon is having a sheath which is made up of a fatty substance, and this sheath is called myelin sheath. Because of the presence of this myelin sheath made up of fatty substance, the axon is having a white colored appearance, and the part of the nervous system or the part of the brain which is made up of this myelinated axons forms what is called white matter. And the part of the brain where the cell bodies of the neurons are aggregated, they appear grey in color because they are not having the myelin sheath. The cell bodies of the neurons are present in the peripheral layer of the cerebral hemispheres or the cerebral cortex. That is why it is said that the cerebral cortex is made up of grey matter. I hope you have understood the difference between grey matter and white matter. So the grey matter is present in the peripheral layer of the cerebral hemispheres, which is called the cerebral cortex, and the white matter is located deep in the brain. Here you can see the white matter is located deep in the brain, and the grey matter is present in the peripheral layer or the surface layer. That is called the cerebral cortex. Then the cerebral cortex is having only a thickness of about 2 to 3 millimeters, and it constitutes about 40% of the mass of the brain. And the cerebral cortex is made up of about 14 to 16 billion neurons. And the cerebral cortex is thrown into folds, which increases the surface area of the cerebral cortex several times. Here you can see the cerebral cortex is thrown into folds, and these folds or the surface elevations of the cerebral cortex, they are called gyri, and the grooves which are separating these elevations or the ridges, they are called sulci. Gyrus is the singular word, sulcus is also singular, and when we express it as plural, we use the terms gyri and sulci. So in this picture it is very clear. Gyri are the ridges or the surface elevations which are present in the cerebral cortex, and sulci are the grooves which are found in between these elevations or ridges. The cortex is regarded as the seat of complex cognition. It is concerned with thought, memory, judgment, decision making, emotions. All these functions are controlled by the cerebral cortex. That is why it is regarded as the seat of complex cognition. And if any damage occurs to the cerebral cortex, it can impair higher functions such as speech, memory, or visual processing. The cerebral hemispheres are formed of 5 lobes. They are the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and the temporal lobe. There is another lobe, that is the 5th lobe. It is called insula. It is located deep inside the cerebral hemispheres. You can see the picture of the 5th lobe insula in the coming slides. The 5 lobes of the cerebral hemispheres, they are separated by some sulci which are unusually prominent. I told that the cerebral cortex is thrown into different folds, and these folds are separated by grooves called sulci. Some of the grooves are unusually prominent and they are much deeper than the other grooves, and hence they divide the cerebral hemispheres into 5 different lobes. These sulci that divide the cerebral cortex into different lobes, they are the central sulcus, lateral sulcus or the sylvian fissure, and parieto-occipital sulcus. Here you can see this is the central sulcus, then the lateral sulcus or the sylvian fissure is present here. Then the parieto-occipital sulcus is located here. You can see in the picture very clearly. These are the 5 cerebral lobes. The first one is the frontal lobe, then parietal lobe, then occipital lobe, temporal lobe, and the 5th lobe is the insula. The insula is not visible unless the parietal lobe, frontal lobe, and the temporal lobe are retracted or pulled apart, because it is located deep in the lateral sulcus. First, let us see the details of frontal lobe. Frontal lobe is located immediately beneath the frontal bone of the skull and superior to the eyes. You know that the human skull is made up of different pieces of bones, and each bone is given a name based on the part of the brain near to which it is located. So here the frontal bone is covering the frontal lobe of the cerebral hemisphere. In the right side picture you can see the frontal bone of the skull, and beneath this frontal bone the frontal lobe of the cerebral hemispheres is located, and it is located above the eye. This is the location of the position of the eye, and the cerebral hemispheres or the frontal lobe in the cerebral hemispheres is located superior to the eyes. The frontal lobe is extending from the forehead to the central sulcus. This is the position of central sulcus, and the frontal lobe is extending from the forehead to the central sulcus. This frontal lobe is chiefly concerned with voluntary motor functions, motivation, foresight, planning, memory, mood, emotion, social judgment, and aggression. So frontal lobe is concerned with most of the important cognitive functions like motivation, foresight, planning, judgment, decision making, emotions, memory, etc. The next lobe of the cerebral cortex is the parietal lobe. Parietal lobe is located beneath the parietal bone of the skull, and it is the uppermost part of the brain. The parietal lobe starts at the central sulcus. Here is the position of the central sulcus. The parietal lobe starts at the central sulcus and it is extending to the parieto-occipital sulcus. Here is the position of parieto-occipital sulcus. And the parietal lobe is visible on the medial surface of each hemisphere. It is located on the upper side of each hemisphere. And it is the primary site for receiving and interpreting signals of general senses such as taste, and some of the visual processing is also done in the parietal lobe. Parietal lobe is also concerned with language and touch. The third cerebral lobe is the occipital lobe. It is located at the back side of the head or the rear end of the head. It is located caudal to the parieto-occipital sulcus. This is the position of parieto-occipital sulcus. The occipital lobe is located posterior to the parieto-occipital sulcus and it is located beneath the occipital bone. Here you can see the occipital bone that is located at the back side of the human skull, and the occipital lobe is located beneath the occipital bone. And it is the primary visual center of the brain where the signals of visual images, they are processed in this site, that is the occipital lobe. Then the fourth cerebral lobe is the temporal lobe. It is located on the lateral sides of the cerebral hemispheres and it is horizontal in position and it is located beneath the temporal bone. The skull bone which is present on the lateral sides, that is the temporal bone, and the temporal lobe is located beneath this temporal bone. The temporal lobe is separated from the parietal lobe by the deep lateral sulcus which is called the sylvian fissure. This is the position of the lateral sulcus or the sylvian fissure, and the parietal lobe is located here. The parietal lobe is separated from the temporal lobe by the lateral fissure or the sylvian fissure. The temporal lobe is concerned with hearing, smell, learning, memory, and some aspects of vision and emotion. Here you can see the fifth lobe of the cerebral hemispheres, that is the insula. It is a small mass of cerebral cortex which is located deep to the lateral sulcus. We can see the fifth lobe, that is the insula, only by retracting the nearby lobes located near the lateral sulcus. Only by pulling apart the surface lobes of the cerebral hemispheres we can see the insula. And the insula is considered to play roles in understanding spoken language. Then it is concerned with the sense of taste and in integrating sensory information from visceral receptors. Visceral receptors are the receptors which are located in different parts in the body associated with the visceral organs or the internal organs, and these sensory informations from the visceral receptors are processed in the insula. So that is about the 5 different lobes of cerebral hemispheres. Thank you.